At Martha Jefferson House in Charlottesville, history meets heartfelt care. Martha Jefferson House has been providing assisted living and long-term care since 1957 that always feels comfortable, familiar, safe, and close to home. Nestled in a beautifully restored home, our residents enjoy comfort, dignity, and personalized attention from a compassionate team. With unmatched care ratios and a long-tenured staff who treat residents like family, Martha Jefferson House is not just a place to live, it's a place to belong.
Every life has a story. Not the polished version we tell at reunions, not the highlights we post online. The real story. The moments that shaped us. The risks we took. The people we loved, the losses we endured. The mistakes we survived, and the lessons we carry forward. Here, I sit down with remarkable people from all walks of life. Not because they're famous, but because they've lived. Through war and peace, triumph and heartbreak, family and faith, these are conversations about what it means to be human. These are real stories, without the filters of hindsight. I'm Marc Hunt, and this is A Life Unedited.
I'm gonna have to buy a couple more lounge chairs. Good morning. My name is Marc Hunt, and this is A Life Unedited. In this podcast, I sit down with remarkable people to hear about their lives, their perspectives, without the filters of hindsight. Today, I am very honored to have Dr. Antonios Mamalakis on the show. Antonios is a professor of environmental science, data science, and AI at the University of Virginia. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Antonios, I've interviewed artists who see beauty where the rest of us see ordinary things. I have a feeling that scientists do something similar. They simply see questions where the rest of us see answers. So when did you first realize your brain wasn't satisfied with the world as is?
Right.
It needed to be understood why it works.
Right. Yeah. No, I 100% agree with that. I was, I think, quite young when I was, in my 8 years old, 9 years old, 7 years old, somewhere there, and I could notice that I had more questions than answers. That's for sure. But I also noticed that I had many more questions than compared to my peers, my classmates. I remember very vividly an example where I was in class and our teacher was telling us that at some point, Christ will come back, and everybody will be forgiven, and we will live forever. And I remember that phrase because I looked around and all my classmates were happy. We will live forever, And I was like, wait a minute, how and why and what does that mean? I had so many questions, and I remember that moment very vividly because I discussed that with my parents, and I realized that those were the years that I realized I had more questions and I need to know why and how things are the way they are.
Right.
And since then I've been doing that. It's been.
So did you drive your parents crazy, or were they patient?
I was asking many questions,
Yeah.
but I have to say that they were always welcoming.
Nice.
Because especially my mother, she was always welcoming to questions. It felt like without her saying really the words that here is a safe space and you can ask questions.
Yeah.
She never said that, but her temperament and her behavior when we had questions signaled that. And so I had many questions. I went, no breaks. I was asking all the time, everything. I had many questions. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
You once described learning as colonizing a new idea.
Right.
That's not a word most people use in that context. And I think it's brilliant because it suggests you don't just want to visit an idea, you want to inhabit it. So that kind of answers my question. Were your parents the kind of people who encouraged questions or expected answers?
Right. Yeah.
And at what point did your mom have to
Yes. I remember I had many questions and I was getting stuck on ideas that I wanted to explore. It was not satisfying to me, the information that I was receiving about different concepts or different ideas. For example, what I just talked about, the concept of forever, the concept of infinity, was crazy to me. I remember I was telling her, do you realize what forever means? Do you realize it means that we will be living for hundreds and hundreds of years, thousands of years, and then we are still not done. Again and again and again, the same neighbor every day. Good morning. This for thousands of years. And she told me, I remember she told me, well, I know it's a weird concept, but it's you need to stop wanting certainty. Because I needed certainty. And actually, that's why, maybe I'm jumping ahead here, but that's why I liked math as a kid, because it provided me certainty. In math, there is a theorem, and if there are some certain conditions, then you can make a conclusion. And that conclusion is not debatable. It's
Right.
100% accurate, and it will hold true no matter what, as long as the conditions of the theorem hold true.
It's concrete.
That was comforting to me. And I was looking for this certainty in life. And it's not there.
Yeah.
It's not
Well, now as an adult, where you now realize that life is uncertain
Right.
every single day,
Right.
right? What are your thoughts on eternity?
Oh, yeah. It's the concept of infinity, which I have to admit I haven't colonized that aspect
Right.
yet. But I'm still struggling with it.
Yeah.
I'm still struggling with questions that are the questions that the entire population is struggling with. I prefer to approach big questions like that, with humility and with allow time to teach me, because some questions are so fundamental that maybe there is no obviously there is no easy answers.
Yeah.
And eternity is one of them.
Yeah.
Eternity, infinity, God, all of these concepts are not attainable easily for the human mind.
Now we can just default to AI, right? Now.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we can ask AI in a few years, in a few decades, but yeah.
So back to math, you
Yeah.
earned a perfect score on your national math exam.
Right.
I have no idea, what that would feel like.
Right.
Math was not my strong suit.
Mhm.
But for you, does success ever feel like arriving, or does it simply move the finish line further away?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think it's both. I think I have noticed, for me, I set goals, and when you achieve those goals, you do feel a certain feeling of satisfaction, because it's the most difficult thing is to set the goal and then achieve it, instead of achieving something without you betting on it. Because when you bet on it beforehand, you know that there is the risk of failure. Sometimes you might see people that they don't want to say they are betting or they are setting up a goal. And I get that, because if they say that aloud, if they admit that to themselves, then it's a bet. It's there.
Right.
They remember, their body remembers it. Their friends remember it. And so failure is more, in that case, is more
real.
consequential
Yeah,
because it's recorded in a sense within their friends or their family or within their minds. But when you do it and you are fortunate enough to achieve your goals, and of course everybody's fails all the time, but when every once in a while when you get there, it's very satisfying. But then I've noticed that about myself, and I think that this speaks to your question. And this is a reality for everybody. I think once you achieve something, you are in a new level. The arena is simply changes. The arena changes, but it's you need a new game.
yeah,
You realize that you're with new peers, and that doesn't mean that those new peers are better or worse than the previous peers that you had, but it's the new players that you will play the game with, and you will set up new goals and new challenges, and so it never stops.
Yeah.
And I think it's healthy as long as you don't get too preoccupied with a goal that define and you think that the result defines you.
Yeah.
And as long as you don't get greedy about always wanting more and more and more and more, and you never take the chance to appreciate and be grateful about what you have achieved already, I think it's a healthy tendency to seek more and set new goals, and because this is how we make progress,
right,
individually and collectively.
Right.
Making progress is something that scales up. Is one of these things that apply to the individual, but apply also to society or the species even. So I think it's healthy. I think as long as we are not being greedy, right? So it's a little bit of both. To answer your question, the short answer, I think, it's a little bit of both.
So obviously your parents promoted education. You grew up in Greece.
Right.
You have a twin brother.
Right.
Any other siblings?
No, just the two of us.
Just the two of you?
Yes, yes.
Where's your brother at these days?
My brother is a professor in University of Cambridge at UK.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when I left Greece to get here to the US, a year later or so he left Greece to go to.
What is he a
the
professor
UK.
of?
He works on neuroscience and AI.
Nice.
Yeah. AI is roughly everywhere right now in the physical sciences or in the STEM fields. AI somewhat is being explored in all those fields.
I would imagine it's going to become more so.
Yes.
After 24,
right.
You decided to move to the United States.
Right.
And you moved initially to Irvine, California.
Right.
I went to high school in Garden Grove, California, which is not too far from Irvine.
Right.
It's a lot different though.
Yeah.
Most people from Garden Grove go to the Irvine spectrum, whereas most people in Irvine do not go to Garden Grove.
Okay.
Because of it's the hood. But
right.
When you first landed in Irvine or in Southern California, what were you intimidated, excited, all of the above?
All of the above. I remember I was worried that I would be very intimidated. And eventually I was not that intimidated, but there was a reason. I remember I was the most important insecurity for me back then was, will I be able to communicate well with speaking English, speaking a language that I'm not fluent in.
How was your English when you arrived?
Fine, given that I was an international person. But that being said, I was a little bit insecure about it. So I remember first class, I just had arrived and the semester had just started. First class, it was climate dynamics or something. And the professor was an international person. And I could tell I couldn't tell what he was saying because of his accent. And I could notice my classmates not being able to understand either. So I remember I was like, oh, we're good. I mean, everybody here, or many people here, are on the same boat.
Yeah.
And then I thought to myself, well, just then relax and just enjoy it. Like you came to a different country, so many miles away from home. Just enjoy the reason you came here for, and this is science. So I couldn't understand what he was saying. So, excuse me, I have a question about this Hartley circulation pattern that you just talked about, and I let the very goal that made me come here drive me instead of any other emotion like fear, insecurities. The other extreme is arrogance. I think if you let yourself be driven by the true goal, the true healthy goal that got you to the place that you are at, and you don't let emotions like insecurities or extreme emotions like arrogance, because sometimes we want to mask our insecurities with confidence, and we simply mimic confidence. It's not true confidence, and we go the other way. It becomes arrogance. But if you let yourself be driven with the true goal, the healthy part of it, everything falls into place. And within a week, I didn't care about my English. So I was worried that I would be intimidated, but eventually it was very, very smooth. And I think all of this is because I was lucky to have an international professor in the first class. And
It was
the first course.
Was it UC Irvine?
UC Irvine,
Yeah,
yes,
which is a good school. I mean,
it's very good
just to
school.
get there, learn
very
that.
good school.
Yeah,
very good scientists. Yeah.
So you major in environmental science?
Civil environmental engineering, to be precise.
Wow.
So I'm an engineer in my background is engineering. Yeah.
So after undergrad at UC Irvine, where did you head next?
Sorry, my undergrad and my master's was in Greece.
Okay.
I did my PhD in
Gotcha,
UC Irvine.
gotcha.
But there was during my PhD, I had already learned statistics and engineering, other engineering related courses. So during my PhD in UC Irvine, I focused more on climate dynamics. I wanted to learn how what are the drivers that drive the phenomenon that I have been trying to model with statistics. Because back in Greece during my master's, I was using statistical models to simulate or better describe phenomena. And then I was wondering, okay, I know that now, but what drives this variability in that phenomenon? What makes it go up and down? I can model that with a statistical model. I can reconstruct it or simulate it or capture it. But what in the real system, what makes it go up and down? Statistics cannot answer that. So in my PhD, I wanted to learn more about the physical mechanisms that drive the variability.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So at what point did you decide that after your PhD was completed, you were going to stay in the States and pursue
That's a very good question.
Education?
I came to the US not knowing that I would stay. But I remember when I was back in Greece, I remember that I was thinking, I want to be very good at something. I was naive back then. So in my mind, I was thinking, I want to become the best, which it never happens. But I was not young enough and naive enough to believe that.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, if you want to become the best at what you do, you need to become good in the US, because the market and the competitiveness and the mentality that people have in the US about careers will push you out of your comfort zone. And if you become good in the US, you will be likely to be good everywhere. So when I came to the US, I realized this is actually very true. And it was the market and the mentality of people and the way they view careers and the opportunities made me realize that I need to stay here if I can. So maybe after my PhD or after my postdoc, because after my PhD I did I did work for a few years in Colorado as a postdoc researcher, and this is where I realized that I wanted to stay.
To teach.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of game on. Then you have to get published and
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Then it's it's in academia we need to get published. We need to we need to show that we have the capacity to lead the field that we are working on. Not by leading it, we don't mean necessarily discover. I mean, if you can discover something new, that's great. But also like cultivate an environment for the field and the community that increase the chances of other people discovering.
Yeah.
That is also leadership. So you need to show some type of leadership, either scientific or in terms of community, in terms of you need to show that people can come to you with questions and you will have
And
answers.
you can guide them.
And I don't know that I've reached that state yet, but we'll
You
see.
must have.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll see.
Well, here's what kind of fascinates me. You spend your life searching for patterns and, researching science and AI.
Mhm.
Do humans have patterns too?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we do.
Do you think humans and people are humans or people are more predictable than they think?
We are predictable. There is determinism everywhere. And by determinism, I mean there is, the property of a system to respond a certain way given a forcing. Climate is a deterministic system. Society is also a deterministic system. The problem with these systems is that although they are deterministic, meaning they are governed by laws and they will have a response, if you give it A, it will give you back B. And that response is to some degree predictable if you know what the underlying function connecting A and B is. The problem with those systems is that they are very complicated. Although they are deterministic, they are very complex. So that complexity makes them sometimes seem random, but they are not random. This is what we call in climate science deterministic chaotic systems. They're chaotic in the sense that they are very sensitive, they're very complicated. So a tiny perturbation in the initial state of the system will lead to totally different trajectories. So that is what makes us believe, society is random or the climate system. They're not random systems. So humans are definitely predictable. Like, for example, take person A and have them, for some reason, within 6 months, they get fired. A very close person to them dies. Another thing, they will have very likely, there is a very likely response to that. Not necessarily on the timescales of day, like we cannot predict what you will be doing this time exactly in 1 week. That's not predictable. But on the scales of months, if you apply a certain forcing to a human, they will have a certain response.
Right.
For example, everybody was telling me, now that you are gonna go to the US, be careful because of that and that and that, because you'll be on your own. And that's true. There is some type of predictability for humans also, and for societies as well. For example, COVID lockdowns. On average, maybe there was a signal, there was a response of society given the COVID lockdowns. There was a response in the average mental state of the society. Sometimes this response is hidden or it's a little bit weak, and it only appears when you average things out. But that doesn't mean it's not there. When you go, typically what I've noticed about these systems, the deterministic chaotic systems, is that predictability and determinism shows up at different scales. If you zoom in too much, there is no predictability. It's almost random. But if you zoom out, the deterministic signals that describe the system are more less hidden and more obvious.
Right.
and I'm jumping around a little bit, but I'm trying to give examples. Global warming is a very robust signal of the Earth when you take the average temperature across all locations, across all days in the year, across all months. You average out fine scale variability, and then you see a robust response of the system, and it is the response that we expected in theory.
Right.
But if you zoom in to a specific location, a specific time of the year, a specific hour during the day, you might see the temperature being lower than what it was 10 years ago. That this variability, this noise, let's say, doesn't mean that there is no deterministic signal when you know how to look about it.
Mm-hmm.
The same way one could say during COVID lockdowns, there were many individuals having the time of their lives, right? But maybe, I don't know the literature on that, but maybe when you take the average, on average, the entire society, and you average also across time, I'm not talking about one day, but throughout the entire period of COVID lockdowns, maybe you will see a signal, a response of the system to in terms of mental state or whatever it is, and a response to the forcing of COVID lockdowns. So sometimes signals are hidden and they only show up on average. So we are definitely predictable, our behavior, but because the system is deterministic, but there is also noise. So the way I like to think about individuals, I like to think of them as a drop in a river. So a water drop can do things for themselves, for itself, can go here and there, but on average, it's going where the entire river is going.
Right.
And this is also, again, about the scale. When you zoom in, maybe we're not predictable, but when you zoom out, we are a modern
All
day.
moving in the same
Yes,
way.
we're a modern day. If you zoom out too much, we're very predictable. We are a modern day human. What do? We go to work. We have, we try to have families, and that's all we do.
Try to pay our bills.
Yes,
And survive, right.
right.
Yeah.
If you think about it, this is definitely a different response from what people were doing 5,000 years ago.
Right.
So if you zoom out enough, you will see differences that are very robust.
Right.
But it has to do with the scale. If you zoom in too much, we become unpredictable. And this relates a little bit to quantum mechanics. If you zoom in too much on the micro level, things become noisy, almost completely random. But if you zoom out, we are able to predict planets and where they go with very high accuracy.
Right.
So determinism is mostly present when you zoom out, when you average things out. And when you zoom in, it's mostly random variability.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, this I think what so in a sense we are predictable, but we are not also when you zoom in too much. Yeah.
No, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, we're moving into a pretty exciting and scary time, I think, with technology and AI, especially. That's definitely, everything we hear on the news and in social media. And you have the unique opportunity to actually be educating other people on AI. You also teach environmental science. So those two combined, I mean, it's, people would probably read those titles and be like, politics would come to mind.
Right.
And everybody kind of has their own, kind of fall back into their own, biased political views, maybe.
Right.
How do you approach students with these preconceptions?
Right. I never tell students what to think.
Yeah.
But I encourage them to develop their own thinking. Sometimes students, and for a good reason, they, I've been a student. I was so preoccupied with, dealing with my courses, and you don't have time to develop, a sophisticated worldview about politics and society. So it's maybe inevitable that you you repeat what you hear, you follow a certain party or a certain politician, and you repeat what they say or what they think. That's fine, but I want students to develop the mental muscle for critical thinking, and I encourage that, and I encourage them also to listen to all opinions. Because here's the thing: if you have developed a worldview that is robust, hearing or listening to a data point that is not in agreement, listening to a person or a philosophy that is not in agreement with worldview, and you can spot the weak points of that philosophy, doesn't do any damage to your worldview.
Right.
So if you want to not listen to certain political views, that signals to me that your worldview is fragile, or the model that you have developed about the world is fragile, and so to protect it, you don't even pay attention to the opposite worldview. But if you are able to apply critical thinking and allow yourself to be exposed to all different points of views, your worldview eventually will become so robust and generally and sufficiently general, where you will be closer to what the truth is. So I encourage them to listen to all points of view and critically assess them. And while they are doing that, they will develop the muscle of critical thinking. Because otherwise, what are you? You are if you are not doing that, you are an intellectual parrot.
Right.
You repeat ideas. This is not your own philosophy. This is not your own worldview. It's not your own model because a worldview is a model, essentially. Even with statistical models or AI models, we know that they perform better when you give them lots of data, and it should be good quality data, but you train it with lots of data, and they are trying to find these models try to fit the data in a generalizable way. So then if you give it a new data point, they can extrapolate, they can predict. I think everybody should be, and that will also deal with the division that we see in politics nowadays in the West. If all of us were able to apply critical thinking and not be afraid of the opposite view, I think that would smooth out radical differences or smooth out extreme behaviors.
I
Yes.
wonder, the next generations, as AI becomes more and more relevant with our phones and even Google, all of our searches, and everybody's getting the same information, if these differences will be eliminated.
Yeah. At the same time, we don't want. Here's the thing: we don't want all of us to think the same thing,
Right.
because then there is no diversity, and diversity maintains momentum for the system.
It's the heartbeat of life.
Right. Exactly. Life.
Right.
One could argue that life is variance,
Yeah.
is variability, diversity. So we don't want that either. But if you expose yourself on purpose to new worldviews, to opposite opinions, and you are able also to spot weak points and debate truthfully and with no fear, but you need to be polite interpersonally, but not intellectually. I tell my students, be always polite interpersonally, be agreeable to some degree, but intellectually you should be disagreeable, or stick to your opinion unless you're provided evidence that you are wrong, in which case you should immediately adopt the new worldview that the evidence suggests.
Do you fear that AI will make future generations intellectually lazy?
There's definitely the risk of that, and it could happen to some degree for some pockets of people, or some. But at the same time, the AI is, as with every new technology, it has potential, and potential is by definition dangerous and exciting.
Right.
Potential is this singularity where it hasn't happened yet, so we don't know. So it can be dangerous, definitely,
Right.
so many ways. But it's also at the same time exciting because it provides opportunity. Getting intellectually lazy or losing agency is one of the most one of the things that I worry the most, because if humans, we try to optimize our lives,
Right.
and we try to put the least effort for and get the maximum return. So if there is a way to do that in certain aspects of our lives, we will adopt that.
Sure.
Now, so it will get worse before it gets better. What I'm hoping is that by becoming intellectually lazy in some ways, we will have time to become intellectually excited and active in other ways, in other domains of the human experience we haven't explored yet.
Right.
But it could be that I'm wrong. It could be that by becoming intellectually lazy in one way, we are lazy everywhere. So that could happen also. In society, all of the things happen.
Right.
Like, some pockets of people might be doing that, and some other people will use these tools for exciting new opportunities.
Well, you actually wrote once that science won't always be driven by curiosity. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, curiosity, healthy curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
The type of curiosity that means you want to figure things out. The thing we were talking about before, colonizing this new aspect, knowing it inside and out, realizing it and attributing and explaining its behavior at all different occasions. This is what colonizing, in my view, is. Yeah, I think this is definitely a possibility.
How long have you been teaching now?
At UVA, it's been 3 years.
So from year one to now, there's been a dramatic change with AI and
Right.
In the environment. Do you see that in your students?
I see that in students. First of all, there's documented grade inflation, and that is partially attributed to the fact that students are using those ChatGPT and Claude and
Yeah.
those tools to get the answer. The problem that I have with that is that we have figured out we have had the calculator since God knows when, but we still teach young students how to operate, how to do summation,
Right.
division. Why do we do that? It's not about being able to do the thing. It's about understanding the concept behind it, because it will give you the opportunity to operate through life in certain situations where you will need to think as if you are dividing things.
Well, that's the purpose of education
Right,
originally,
exactly.
right?
So it's not about doing only the thing. So one could say, well, ChatGPT gives me the answer. What's the point? It's not about getting the answer. It's about learning the path to the answer. So then when there is a challenge that is to some degree or approximates the challenge that you faced in school, you are not in the dark. You have some tools, you have some experience and some confidence in yourself that you can deal with it. If you always depend on ChatGPT, you've never developed the muscle.
Right.
School is essentially like an intellectual gym. You need to go there and struggle carefully. And this is what I try also to do with my lab. It will be struggle, but careful and carefully designed struggle, so you don't injure yourself. Because one extreme of not doing anything is bad, but the other extreme of trying to do all kinds of challenges at the same time and with no protection, that's also that will also traumatize you in a different way. So school should remain uncomfortable, challenging, and ChatGPT is taking this away from us. Ancient Greeks, I mean, even in today's Greek language, modern Greek, the word for education is ekpedevsi, and very roughly, it's not very accurate translation, but ek is essentially the result of, and pedevsi is struggle. So education is the result, what remains after you've struggled. One could say that it should be controlled struggle, and I agree with that. But no matter what, it should be uncomfortable. It should.
What do you think the great Greek philosophers, like, what do you think Socrates would think about AI?
I don't know. That's a very interesting question, and I don't know. I think
they would probably think that was the end of the
first
humanity.
He would first of all would have a political and cultural shock because it's until he adapts to modern day life, and then he would need to step back and reflect on modern day life. So I don't know. I don't think I can answer that, but it's very interesting to reflect on that. I think he would probably not like it.
Be disappointed.
Yes,
I think.
not like it.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. But we don't need. The thing is that we don't need intellectual parrots, or scientific parts for that matter, and depending on a tool makes you deprives you from the opportunity to develop your own mental faculties, and that's the devastating thing.
So obviously we know what the negative effects of AI could be. What are you excited about? What are the possibilities that AI could
it's
help us navigate in the future?
It can be a tool to make for us to make discoveries and accelerate discoveries everywhere, really everywhere. Now, numeric, to predict weather, even to forecast weather, we have been using numerical models that essentially resolve the equations that describe the system. And the new thing is to do that with AI without prescribing equation at all, any equations. Just figuring out patterns in the data and predicting. So AI discovers determinism without prescribing the determinism, just because it has an extreme capacity to process lots of data and figure out and get nonlinear patterns out of the data. This is fascinating to me, because here's the thing: determinism in physical systems can be described with equations, and we figured those equations out with time. But determinism most of the times exists in systems, not in the form of equations. For example, society, we were just talking about that, is a deterministic system. There are predictable aspects about society, but you cannot sit down and write an equation. There's no continuity of emotion. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe there is. I don't know. But no one has come up with equations to describe society on a psychological level or in all levels. But AI can figure out the determinism, can capture the determinism that exists in the data. And we have lots of data describing human behavior and society. So it can capture that determinism on its own and figure out, can be a tool for predicting responses of societies, of a society given certain policies. Maybe politicians in the future, they use an AI to say, what if I lower taxes this way? What is the response of the system? To the degree that we can trust it, right? But maybe in the future we can. So the fact that it can capture determinism from data, it will fundamentally change all fields of science.
Yeah, I mean, medical advancements
Yeah,
already.
Everything. As long as a system is not completely random and there is some deterministic component to the system, AI with enough data can capture that and can give us the answer to whatever future scenario we have. So everywhere, physical sciences, meaning geosciences, medicine, education for humans, like so many opportunities. There are already studies that show students learn better with an AI assistant than
Wow.
with in class. Not because the AI assistant is better than the teacher necessarily, or maybe it is, but it's because they are not afraid to ask questions. They are not afraid to, because it's them and only the
Interesting.
assistant,
Right.
and they say,
Interesting.
"Oh, I didn't get that. Tell me again."
Right.
"Oh, I didn't get that. I don't get that. I don't get that. Maybe my background, I missed something 3 years ago, and
And then it
I'm
explains it
missing
in
this
another
concept.
way. Yeah.
I'm missing this concept." And AI will say, "Oh, no problem. Here's the. Oh, now I get it." But they would never ask a professor or a teacher something that they know they missed out 3 years ago,
Right.
because they on average at least they might be embarrassed.
Yeah.
So even that. But again, as I said, don't rely on it 100%. It's an assistant. It's not. Don't use it as an agent of your life. Don't lose agency of your life.
I think that's going to be easier said than done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You spent your life understanding physical world. Do you think people are ultimately harder to understand than mathematics? And what qualities do you hope to see in future generations?
People, the fact that I work on AI a lot, sometimes and that maybe that's not good, but sometimes I have started viewing humans as a biological, instead of an artificial intelligence, a biological intelligence. By the way, this is how artificial intelligence was discovered. Um, Scientists were looking at the biological brain, and they tried to mimic the structure of the biological brain artificially. The structure is very was inspired by our biological brains. So there are, and now the two fields, computer science and neuroscience, computer scientists look in neuroscience to get inspired and try to improve artificial intelligence, and sometimes by accident they do things that are so innovative that neuroscientists look at and they get inspired to pose similar questions related to the biological brain. So there is similarity there. There are some similarities. So sometimes I view humans, a human is also a model, a very complicated one. We have billions and billions of neurons in our brains, but ChatGPT has also billions and billions of parameters. So it's not a human yet, but that's why people are draw parallels between the two. So a human is a model, a worldview. They have a worldview. They're biased certain ways because they have been trained on certain biased data. They have been traumatized. They are predictable to some degree. They are unpredictable in other ways. If you view a human like that, you quickly see that it's definitely difficult to understand them on an individual level, but no more difficult than it's to understand an AI. Like, we don't know how AIs think. That's another active research area in AI, trying to explain AIs, because we know we build them. We build the architecture, but then we train them on millions and millions of data points, and they have millions and millions or billions of parameters. So how do they decide, really? We know on a neuron scale what each neuron is doing, but it's billions of neurons, and they interact together non-linearly. So sometimes when you say, I don't know this person, what they have in their mind, I don't know what's going on in there. Sometimes we feel like that about AIs, and there is active research about that. So it's very difficult to understand intelligence, even if it is biological or artificial. that's actually a question that I think is very fascinating for AI researchers
Yeah.
or in the humanities or social sciences, and maybe there is literature on that, but at least for AI, I know the literature, and we are not there yet. We don't know exactly. We have
Well-
tools to explain some decisions, but we don't know
But
exactly.
does that mean AI will essentially make itself smarter?
Oh, that's definitely a possibility. There is people talk about at some point AI will become so smart that it will be able to know how to get itself smarter, and it will do it. Now it's a different question. Intelligence is distinct from for consciousness, and consciousness, I think, is necessary for someone to have goals or to be able to set goals and things. So, but intelligence is also, I think, necessary for consciousness, because, for example, you need to have a capacity of intelligence to realize that you're alive.
Right.
And humans have become smarter also through millennia. The human species. I don't think we were always to the same degree conscious that we are compared to what we are now.
Sure.
So it's not the same thing, intelligence and consciousness, but they relate. And I think consciousness needs intelligence. It's not sufficient, but it's a necessary condition for intelligence, for consciousness. So maybe AI at some point will have goals. I don't think this will happen soon, and I don't. And then some people say it will happen very soon, and we will get to the point where it will attack us back, or these are all scenario,
Right.
but I don't think that we are there yet.
Well, hopefully they never get.
Yeah, yes,
We get to that
exactly.
point, right?
Yeah.
50 years from now, what discovery do you hope humanity has made?
Out of the there are many potential discoveries that are very exciting, and they're possible to be. It's possible for us to actually get there within 50 years. Getting to other planets is very fascinating to me.
Yeah.
But if I were to go, crazy with that answer, I would say discover or not, figure out the God's existence. Can we answer that? It's like fundamental question.
Right.
It's been going on for millennia, but I don't think we will get there in 50 years.
Yeah, that'd be fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, my final question is, you spend your life searching for the laws that govern nature.
Mm-hmm.
If there were one law that governs a meaningful human life, what do you think it would be?
Maybe aiming to be a black hole for negativity, for evil. If every one of us, when they are happy and they have positive things to say or share, we do that. But when we are sad and or frustrated about something and we know it's more or less our fault, we shouldn't spill that over to other people, because there are direct effects to a negative reaction, but there are also indirect effects.
Mm-hmm.
And the indirect effect sometimes they last longer, meaning we hurt another human being because we were upset with our life, and then that other human being, we change a little bit their worldview, tiny bit, that model they have about how humans behave and what their world means. We change their model, their understanding a little bit, tiny bit, and they repeat that change later, and that's data for other people, and that new data has a little bit noise in their output.
Mm-hmm.
And that output is data for other people. And so this is how negativity spreads. A negative emotion or evil spreads faster than positive. So I would say, if we were to try to practice being mindful about why we are frustrated in the moment, and not make that part of others'
Of
lives.
your interactions.
Yeah, that would be a good law to go by.
That's very well said.
Yeah.
Antonios, it's been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming. This was amazing.
Absolutely, Mark.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. My name is Marc Hunt. This is A Life Unedited, where I get to sit down with remarkable people like Dr. Antonios. Thank you.